Arsenій Yacenyuk was Prime Minister of Ukraine from 2014 to 2016. He's now chairman of the Kyiv Security Forum and joins us live from Ukraine. Mr. Yacenyuk, very good to have you on the programme. Just from...
Thanks for having me too.
What you understand, I mean, has there been any lessening in the fighting in those regions around Kyiv and Chernihiv?
Well, yesterday, the Russian DoD actually made a claim that they are ready to withdraw troops from Kyiv and Chernihiv. I was very blunt and clear saying that this is a hoax, this is a lie and deception, and I don't trust any single word of Russians. And what's happening right now on the ground and what happened at night. New missile strikes and ongoing shelling of both Chernihiv and partly of the capital. So it has nothing to do with the real withdrawal of troops. This is a kind of window dressing where Russia decided to regroup its military. They failed to encircle Kyiv. They failed with their large-scale offensive operation against Ukraine. So they decided to switch to Plan B.
Okay. Well, given that lack of trust that you were talking about, do you think there's any point to these peace negotiations, which have been suspended now temporarily, but in which Ukraine seems to be engaging quite energetically with its proposals for some sort of negotiated ceasefire at the very least?
You know, sir, with all due respect, you mentioned lack of trust. You can have lack of trust in case if you have at least some trust. Russians, they are always lying. You remember a few months ago when Russian foreign minister and an entire this Russian Putin's Nazi-style regime machine said that they will never invade Ukraine? What in the end happened? They lied and they waged the war against Ukraine.
Well, given that, sorry to interrupt, I mean, given that, do you think it's futile for Ukraine to be talking about things like, at this stage, things like, in the long term, neutrality with certain security guarantees, no foreign military bases, about sort of saying that Crimea's status should be put into abeyance for 15 years? I mean, is this pointless?
Let me try to answer every question you raised. The first question you raised about these so-called peace talks. I don't see any real talks ongoing. Look at the level of the negotiators appointed by Putin. It's no names, it's just nobody. Ukrainian side represented by the chair of the faction of the ruling party, by some high-profile political establishment figures. Look at the Russians. Once again, this is window dressing. We need to prepare the ground for these kind of real peace talks. And in order to get to these real peace talks, we need first to supply defensive lethal weapon, not defensive, but lethal weapon to Ukraine, to ramp up sanctions, and to maintain unity in the free world. These are three crucial preconditions to pave the way to real peace talks with Russia.
In which case, do you think it's a distraction at the moment? I mean, this is what I'm trying to get at.
No doubt. It's a complete distraction.
Well,
no doubt.
In that case, would you advise the Ukrainian government simply not to engage with it?
No. It's completely different. I do support an attempts of Ukrainian government actually to act in a good faith, saying that, look, we are ready to hold these talks. So we are showing to the entire world that Ukraine wants to reach and to hammer out a peace deal. And in this way, we show that Russia is deflecting. Russia is lying.
And in terms
of neutrality status.
Yeah, so that's where I was going to come on to. Tell me about that.
Absolutely. So I will remind to your listeners a very sad and notorious story of neutrality status of Ukraine that already was. Before 2014, Ukrainian legislation enshrined a clear-cut neutrality status. And despite this, what Russia did? They invaded Ukraine, they illegally annexed Crimea, and Putin sent its military to Donetsk and Lugansk, which is the eastern part of Ukraine. So it didn't work. It's another hoax, crafted by Putin.
Right, but you say crafted by Putin, but this is a suggestion that has come from the Ukrainian government. Are you saying, look, in the long term, no neutrality is going to provide sufficient security guarantees?
Here is the thing, sir. Ukrainian government is to stick to the Ukrainian constitution. And under the current Ukrainian constitution, a NATO membership, both NATO and EU membership perspective, they are both enshrined into the Ukrainian constitution. So we have to stick to the legislation and to the core bill of the Ukrainian of the Ukrainian state. As for now.
Arsenій Yacenyuk, former Prime Minister of Ukraine, chairman now of the Kiev Security Forum. Thank you very much for joining us.